All righty, I'm going to jump into scrub-a-dub-a-dub in a tape. What do we know about tapes? I'm going to share my screen in a second. What can somebody tell me about a tape?
Well, I know that a mixtape is the ultimate form of love. If somebody's willing to make you a mixtape, that's true love.
I'd have to agree. A mixtape. Okay. Can everybody see this? You're looking at terminology? All righty. So what is a tape? A tape is usually just an Excel spreadsheet with assets that are for sale. So for those of you who may have taken the training, you probably know all of this, but this might be a great overview for you. But it's nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet, and it has a list of assets that are for sale. So those assets are notes. They could be non-performing, they could be performing. Some of them could be first position, second position. Some of them can be multifamily. Some of them can just be single family, commercial. You can get a variety of things on a tape of notes. What I do like about receiving tapes, and you're usually getting them from the banks, credit unions, the hedge funds, brokers, or other note investors. What I like about it is I can connect with maybe 3 or 4 different hedge funds or banks or credit unions, or just have 3 or 4 and get tapes of 200 assets, 300 assets, 100 assets, right? As opposed to just sending out feelers or doing one house and trying to flip something and turn a note or do it. And that's more of your seller financing side, right? It's not bad, but when I can cast my net and get more, that's what I like to get. So tapes are given by these banks, these credit unions, these hedge funds, brokers, and other note investors. So how do you get them? It's really by networking and building relationships. It's getting on the phone, it's knowing who to talk to. Usually you have an asset manager at your banks or your credit unions. Your hedge funds is just really going out to these conferences, meeting people. Getting on LinkedIn is actually a powerful tool. Getting on LinkedIn and finding out people will actually reach out to you, because when they're ready to liquidate stuff, they're just trying to find out, who is it that they can go to. With that said, when you make these relationships, you also have to be able to perform. You can't just say, okay, give me your tape, give me your tape, give me your tape, and then you never perform off of that tape. So you never create a deal, or you never do a deal with that bank or that hedge fund, because after a while, they'll stop sending you stuff. Brokers, they'll send you stuff all day long because they're just trying to move stuff. So they're brokering the notes, or they're wholesaling the notes. And then other note investors, they'll send you stuff all day long too, but you'd be surprised at the amount of inventory some other note investors, they're just individual note investors, have. And when they're ready to dispose of those assets, become liquid, or they need more cash to do more deals, then they may break off a partial for you, or they may just sell off the whole tape. So that's where you can get the tapes. How much do they cost? I'm always asked, how much do tapes cost? They don't cost anything. If someone is charging you for a tape, they're a fraud. Just, block them and keep on going. So you do not want to pay for tapes. Tapes are free. Now, if you're buying something off of a tape, then there may be a cost, but that usually comes as part of the acquisition or the purchase of the note. That is the only time that you're actually paying. It might be a 1% or 2%. And so that might be a broker fee. But outside of that, the tape itself for you to look at and review and scrub is free. Any questions there? Okay. So the tape is the only document you will get before you actually put in an offer. So in order to put in this offer, you need to know what to do and how to scrub this tape, just to be able to say, this is an asset that I want. And so some of the terms you're going to see is UPB. So that's the unpaid principal balance. That's the balance that's left on the loan that the borrower owes the bank. So if you have a mortgage and your mortgage is $100,000, then that's what you owe on your mortgage. Then the UPB, or the unpaid principal balance, is $100,000. That's what you will see on the tape. You'll sometimes see T&I, sometimes taxes and insurance. They wrap them all up into one: taxes, insurance, principal, and interest. But you'll see T&I, which is the taxes and insurance, which is the part of the payment that goes into escrow. So you don't get that if your taxes and insurance are escrowed. That goes into the escrow account for the borrower. Then you have P&I, which is principal and interest. So that's the payment you receive. So as the note holder, you receive that principal and interest. Any questions there? Cool. So you'll also see rate. The rate is the current interest rate that will be on that loan. It is not the rate that you will receive, but it is the rate that is on the loan that the borrower is paying as part of that loan. And the term is usually the length of the loan. So if it was a 20-year loan, then it will be 120, and you'll see 120 months. If it was a 30-year loan, you'll see 360 on there for 360 months, because it's generally given in months. The confusing thing that a lot of people get mixed up with is the last pay date and the next payment due. So the last pay date is the last payment made by the borrower. So if you're an on-time payer and you pay your mortgage on time and it's due the first of the month, then the last pay date for you, say it's in February, your last pay date would be February 1, 2023. That means you made your last payment on time, February 1, 2023. The next payment due would be your next payment date. So since you're a good borrower, you made your last payment on February 1st, your next one's due March 1st. The next pay date should say 3/1/2023. The modification date, that's just if there is a loan modification. One thing I don't do is that if I'm looking at a non-performing note, meaning that the note has defaulted, the borrower is not a good borrower, they stopped paying on their mortgage, then I see that there's a modification, and then I see that it's non-performing again, I don't deal with those, because now I know I'm going to have to go in and either foreclose, unless it's like a really great deal. I know I'm dealing with a problem borrower at this point, because anytime you have a loan modification and there's still a non-performing note, that means the lender tried to work with the person. It didn't work out, and now they're still falling behind. So some of those you want to watch out for. And one of the things you want to do is know your criteria. Now, I don't expect people to know their criteria immediately going into and scrubbing their first tape. It's just not, it's not realistic, right? So some of the things that will help you out, though, is, what states do you want to invest in? Do you want to invest in southern states? A lot of people like those southern Midwestern states simply because they are non-judicial states, right? You don't have to go through the courts in order to go through foreclosure, should you have to take that property back, right? If you don't have to go through it, that's fine. Other states like New York, New Jersey, Maine, all of those northeastern states, you may have to go through a longer foreclosure period. So that's something to consider. What states do you want to be in? And I advise people, don't stay in your backyard, because if you stay in your backyard, I mean, you'll be pressed sometimes to even get some inventory. I haven't seen a whole lot of stuff come in through Maryland. I've seen stuff, but not a whole lot of stuff. But I do see a whole lot of stuff in Ohio. And as long as you know what you're doing, you can reach out and go across the country and buy across the country without having to worry about anything, without having to go buy the property. But if you're that person that has to touch the property, has to make sure the lawn is green and all that other kind of stuff, that's fine. I'm just saying you limit yourself when you're just trying to buy in your backyard. So know how much you may have to invest. That will help narrow the tape down. Do you want performing? Do you want those that are currently paying and they're paying on time? Or do you want non-performing, people who have defaulted? What principal and interest are you looking for? Is $200 good? For some people, $200 is great. Just throw it in my retirement account and let it go. Or throw it in my health savings account and let it go. It's fine. But know what principal and interest you're looking to get month after month. And what return are you looking for? Some people, everybody has a different return, right? 8% is great for some people. Some people are looking for double digits, 10, 12, 14% return. Whatever you're looking for, just know, what range and what's going to look good for you. So I think that is it for it. And we're going to start scrubbing a tape. Hey, Canadian Rodney.
Hello.
How are you all? Hey, Stephanie.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to jump on in here to this tape. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, you all are seeing my tape. Is it big enough? Should I enlarge it?
It looks good.
Okay. All righty. So this is a tape. This is an example of a tape. This is an old tape. So none of the assets are available right now. Although some assets just keep coming back around and around and around again, but you'll see them over and over. But as you can see, this tape, if we scroll on down, it has 110 assets on it. And it got $8.2 million in, is that unpaid balance? Yep, in unpaid principal balance. So that's a lot of assets to go through, right? Nobody wants to go through 110 assets if you're only looking to buy one or two, or maybe if you're even looking to buy 10. I still don't want to have to go through 110 assets in order to do that. So let's go through what we have. We have the property address. We have the city, the state, the zip. This is all normal. This is everything that you will get and you'll see on the tape. If you don't have an address, which I've received tapes that don't have an address, and I'm like, what do you want me to do with this? I mean, they just had the state, and I'm supposed to just make a deal off of a state. I need to know what the property is looking like. So if it doesn't, always hit your seller back and say, can you give me an address? That's helpful. The county, sometimes it will have the county, sometimes the tape won't have a county. And just so you know, not all tapes are the same, but the basic information you want to make sure you have the address, the city, and the state. You can always look up a zip. You want to make sure that you have the unpaid principal balance. These two columns I added myself, and I'm going to tell you about them once I come back. Here is the rate. That is the interest rate that the borrower is paying. So you see it ranges at 5.5, 6, 7, even this little 3.2 here, that's cute. And then you have this 10.9, almost 11% rate, right? So they're paying some pretty high rates in some cases. And actually, some of them, these 6 or 7s are looking like rates that you can get now. And then we have our principal and interest. So this would be the payment that you get month after month. Hold on one second. So this would be the payment that you get month after month. So this is the principal and the interest. So you see they're ranging from $1,200 to $300, $319. It's like, whose mortgage costs $295, right? And you'd be surprised. People walk away from some of those. I had one where the mortgage was like $198 and the people just vacated. Like, how do you vacate a $198 mortgage? But you're seeing the pricing of all of them, up to $3,000 here. So they vary and it ranges. Here's the original term. The original term is how many months was on the original loan. So 360s, they were 30 years. I don't know what 528 is, but I can do the math. You know, your 120, 240 would be, is that a 5? What is 120? That's not 10 years. 10 years would be 2. Anyway, y'all know what I'm saying. I'm doing the math, but they range straight down, right? So know what your term is. The remaining term, you always have to check. Now, the remaining term isn't always on the tape, but sometimes it's great when it's not on the tape, and it's good because they're not telling the truth. And you can check, because when you look at the next pay date or the last pay date, you'll be able to see that there's more or less than 346. So take the remaining term with a grain of salt, because you'll be able to figure it out, especially after you look at the file if you put in an offer. The lien position, these are all first position liens. Can anybody tell me what the first position lien is or what it means? Anybody know? Somebody out there knows.
Take a stab. I believe it means you are in first position to receive monetary returns in the event there's judicial action that needs to take place.
Perfect. So it's just, if you are a new homeowner and you buy a house and you go to Bank of America and you get a mortgage, that's your first mortgage. If you go out and you get a home equity line of credit or a home equity loan, that would be your second mortgage. So sometimes you'll see seconds, sometimes you'll see first. Of course, I only work in the first position. I don't work in second position, not yet anyway. If someone can, do a mentor and mentor me through a second, I'll be okay. but I'm in first position, meaning you have first rights to that property should the borrower default. Here you have the original loan. That's the original loan amount and the date in which the original loan originated. So this was in 2004. The original loan was $200,000. Here we go with the last paid date. The last time this person paid was April 1st, 2022. And so the next due date was May 1st, 2022. So what do we now know about this note?
30 days behind.
Say that again.
They're 30 days behind.
There is 2023.
Yeah. Oh, this is a current tape.
No, no. If we're looking at it from today's point of view, from February, what is today? February 23rd, 2023.
Yeah,
And
they're
we look
more
at
than a year
They're
behind.
more than a year delinquent, right? So if they stopped paying in April of 2022. Very good. And so their next due date was May 1st and they didn't make it. So here we see, and I told you about the modifications, that a modification had already been made in 2019, and yet they still did not pay. They stopped paying. So somewhere along the line, they stopped paying earlier, then they stopped paying again. So after the modification, they're still delinquent. So we know that this is a non-performing note with a modification and it still became non-performing. Here's the maturity date. So it's supposed to mature in 2049, but we don't know what's happening because right now we don't know what's happening with the borrower. We don't know what they're doing. We just know that they have stopped paying. This is the type of asset. So there all seem to be mortgages. What other type of assets could there be? Anybody know?
Deeds.
Deeds, contract for deeds. Y'all go.
Mhm. Yep.
Contract for deeds could also be lease options.
Lease.
I've seen lease options. Mortgages are the more secure instrument. And so they're priced a little bit higher. You can sell them off for a little bit more just because it's a more secure instrument than a contract for deed. However, it's good to know that these are all mortgages. It's good to know what it is you're buying, mainly because of pricing also, and to know what you have. Sometimes you will receive the borrower's first and last name, not all the time, but you can receive it sometime. Any questions?
Yes, that last column. So when you see reference made to estates, is this an indication of some probate situation that may explain the story behind why they're not paying, why it's non-performing now?
Yes, 9 times out of 10 it is, and it might be in probate, or they might be, I don't know. It could just be, it could just be sitting in their estate. They may be ready to sell it off. You just have to go in and find out. But it's okay if it's in an estate. I wouldn't shy away from it just because it's in an estate. But yes, that is part of the issue. It's probably because whoever was living there, I mean, I don't know who Royce is, but if Royce was paying and then Royce died and no one else took it up, that doesn't mean the family's not living there, because there have been situations where the family has died or the person has died and the grandkids are still living there and they think that they should be living for free. And nobody took over the payments and nobody wants to take over the payments, but they still want to live in the house type thing. So yes, that is. Any other questions?
How would that be an attractive tape for you?
How would it be attractive? Because it depends on the property. The original loan was $200,000 in 2004. I would like to know, what is the UPB on this? The UPB is at 221. They might have. I wonder if that's 221. The original loan was 200. Did they take out? They may have taken out, but it was modified. So it might be because they modified it in 2019. There could have been some back stuff going on. And so that was added and the modification brought them back up. That would be something you would have to go into once you put an offer in. I would put an offer in just to look at the collateral file and say, what really happened here? But if I have a property that's $200-something thousand and you owe me that $200,000 and I can still get it at a decent price.
Gotcha. Okay.
At this UPB, I mean, I wouldn't pay 220 for it, but maybe if I paid 175, 150, provided the property is still worth something, oh yeah, I'd go after it
Mhm.
and wait. Any other questions?
On what basis would you negotiate at that discount of 75?
To 175?
175.
At what basis?
Yeah, what would
I
be
actually would do
your
it lower because one, they stopped paying over a year ago.
Mhm.
And I would actually go a little bit lower. Well, I would go, I would try at least at 50, I have here 50 cents, but at least 65 cents on the dollar, just because it's non-performing, it's already been modified and they've been paying. Clearly they have problem paying because this loan was issued in 2004 and they still haven't paid it down.
Wow.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, to me, there's an issue going on there. And now you're offloading it. So offload it at a nice discount for me to go in there and take your headache.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Yeah, I have some great questions. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go and do and to scrub a W to tape is I'm going to freeze the top row. You see, I already do this. This is how I use my Excel. I always just go for a search. I say freeze the top row. The reason I want to freeze the top row, and if you don't know Excel, you don't have to be a star in it because I'm not a star in it. I don't have, all the 15 million formulas and 50 different sheets down here that all connect to each other. Go on YouTube and do basic Excel if you don't understand it and just know how to, insert a column or something. And that's all you need to know just to scrub a tape. So don't be intimidated by Excel. But the first thing I do is I freeze the top row. And the only reason I do that is so that as I'm scrolling, I know what I'm looking at. Because before the top row was going up and I didn't even know which column was which. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I like to highlight my unpaid principal balance. I'm gonna make it a different color. Now, what is the UPB? Anybody tell me what the UPB is? It's the unpaid balance, and that's the balance that's left on the loan, right? And so I highlight the UPB just so that I can see it and I know what it is. And I highlight the principal and interest so I can see it and know what it is. The other thing I do is I'll hide some columns. Like I don't need the lien position because I already see that every last one of these are in first position. So I'll just right click on it and hit hide just to kind of narrow everything down and make it manageable. Sometimes I'll keep the terms, all of that. I don't necessarily need the names on there, but everything else seems pretty cool, right? And I can just keep all of that information. Then I create these two columns. I created them in advance while we were, before I got on. But I create these two columns in order to help run my numbers. So I have this column at 50 cents on the dollar. And why do I have it on 50 cents on the dollar? Mainly because if you look at all of these last pay dates and next due dates, you see they're all in 2020, 2022, 2020. So that's telling me that these are non-performing notes. There's one 2023, this is performing. So it's really a mix. There's a couple of performing in here, but mainly they're non-performing notes. You have a couple of performing here. 210, 310, that's recent. And 3. So you have a tape of predominantly non-performing notes with a couple of performing notes sprinkled in. So with that,
I have a question.
yes. Hey, Alton.
How you doing? This tape here, was it sent in Excel or did you create this yourself from another tape and you had to put all this information in?
No, this was sent in an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
So your tapes are usually sent to you in an Excel spreadsheet. Or if they aren't sent in an Excel spreadsheet, they're usually sent in some sort of format where you're going to have all of this information.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So I said that they are non-performing. Generally, you can get a non-performing for anywhere from 50 to 65 cents. If you're going to pay more for a non-performing note, then have a good reason for doing it. And by that, I mean, if you have a property, an asset that's worth $300,000, say you're up in New York and you have a $300,000 home. Beautiful home is ready to go. The borrower has defaulted on that loan. And there's only $100,000 on that loan left on that loan. So you would have a note for the bank has a note for $100,000 on a property that's worth $300,000. To ask to get that at 50 cents on the dollar, where you're asking to get that at $50,000, it's not really reasonable because the seller knows the value of the house. The seller knows that the house is worth $300,000. It's almost worth it to ask par, right? Par being the face value of that loan. So it's almost worth it to pay $100,000 if the property is $300,000. But the concern is, well, what if I go in and they turn around and start paying again? That would determine on how delinquent they are. So if they were, a year's delinquent, how much does that add up in late fees and the catch up, and they can pay back legal fees and whatever else they have to do? What is the modification going to look like? But if they're just, I wouldn't do it if they were just like 90 days, because nine times out of 10, they're just going to catch up. And then you have to look at the interest rate. If the interest rate was 9%, okay. But if the interest rate is like 2 or 3%, it's not really worth it. Am I confusing people? I'm sorry, because I'm talking.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All right,
Like
cool.
And even
All right.
versus making money.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you just have to take those things into consideration with each and every note and things that you're looking at. So, but in general, I would say around 50 cents, you can even change this to 65. There's no hard or fast rule in, sorry about that. There's no hard and fast rule in having this, any number, but I'm just putting, 65 cents on the dollar or 55 cents on the dollar, just because they're all non-performing. So this is the cash on cash. This is what we're going to calculate afterwards. But I created these two sheets off of these two columns off of the entire spreadsheet. I'm gonna go back to 50. So then why did I create these columns? Because I can get it at 50, I want to know what is the offer? What is my offer price? So what I generally do is just hit this column, hit equals. Then I hit the UPB, click on the UPB, and I go times 0.5. Where'd it go? Did I delete it?
No, you would drop down a couple of.
Oh, I
rows.
dropped that. Oh, thank you. So what happened? See, I told y'all, Excel 101. So now you have 110 because this is what your offer would be at 50 cents on the dollar. And then you just take this little notch right here in the corner and scroll it straight down so that you don't have to do that for each and every column. And once you scroll it straight down for each and every column, it automatically populates. So now you have your offers here at 50 cents on the dollar. Well, say you want to change it to 60 cents on the dollar or 65. That's fine. You can do that. But of course, you don't have to do all of this on your tape. You can do it and then do the exact same thing and just scroll it back down and everything is there. Now, sometimes because we had those performing notes on there, I will create a second column. And I might do it at 0.85 or something like that, right? And that way you're taking it here times the UPB times 0.85, and it's the exact same thing. So that accounts for your performing and your non-performing side. So if you run across one that you like and it's performing, you can look in the 0.85 column. And if you run across one that's non-performing, you can look in the 0.5 column. But this would be the offer that you're looking to make should you decide to choose one of these assets and put in an offer. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. All righty. So then what's the COC? Cash on cash. Cash on cash is your return that you will make in 1 year. So it is your cash outlay. And what is that return? If you were to outlay this cash, what would be your percentage return within 1 year? And I like to start with the cash on cash. To be honest with you, I like to start with cash on cash because it's like the easiest thing to calculate in Excel. If you want to do the yield and everything else, it's like a whole formula thing. So I start with cash on cash. But this, again, you're just scrubbing your tape. There's still a whole nother process of the due diligence process in order to get to your solid numbers and to actually make the offer. But this is just to give you an idea of selecting one or two assets. So how do I do my cash on cash? I do equals principal and interest times 12. Why do I do principal and interest times 12? Because that's one annual payment. That will be your annual payment divided by whatever your offer is going to be. My offer is going to be 143,751 on the non-performing, and then I hit return. So then I have to go up here and get my percentage, and you'll see that that's an 11% return. If I can just grab that little thing, scroll it down, and it'll do it for all of them and give you the return on all of them. So there you're looking at the type of return. Should you make this offer, you're looking at around 11% cash on cash. Here you're looking at 21%. And so you just go scroll down and you can look at the numbers and see what it is. Now, when you get to things like this, there's this 118, it looks good, but sometimes you're in, especially at a 3.625 rate. The unpaid principal balance is at 21. It's non-performing. Oh, no, that's not too bad. It depends on what the property is going to be worth. Is it worth that 13? And the people aren't going to pay. So again, you have to take that with a grain of salt for non-performing also, because these numbers are naturally going to be higher because you're just taking what the principal and interest is times 12 and dividing it by your offer, which is fine, but that doesn't take into account, the back pay, if you get them to reperform, and if you have to make a modification, what are those? It doesn't take into account if you have to go into foreclosure and have to take the property back, right? But this gives you the launching point for actually selecting something. Any questions? All righty. So then the next thing I do is I start to sort. Oh, let's see. So I go over here and I hit my filter. Come up here, I hit filter. And once you hit filter, you'll see these little arrows come up in each little column. This is where you want to start narrowing down your tape. So you could say, I don't want anything but, southern states. So we come over here, I deselect all of them, but I'll select Alabama because Alabama's southern, Georgia. Where else we going? Louisiana. We can pick Maryland just because we're here. Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. And let's see where that takes us. That actually took us down to 23 records. So we went from 110 down to 23. Is that more manageable? Indeed. And not only is it more manageable, it's in the states that you wanted it to be. So say you only had, though, I don't know, $50,000 that you wanted to invest. It looks like we're going to have a little bit more here. Say that you only had $50,000 that you wanted to invest. Well, this is the column that you're in for the non-performing. So say we're numbers filters here. We're going to say greater than or less than or equal to, I don't think it's going to take off much. Let's say 45,000. 45,000. And that narrows it down to 18 records. Oh, was I? Yeah, that narrows it down to 18 records. That's something you can work with, right? So it's a little bit more manageable. And you can even take it down to the principal and interest. If you want your principal and interest to be over 400 or over 350, you're going to really narrow it down if it's over 400 here because you only have a handful. But then you can just narrow it down. And once you narrow it down, honestly, the one thing I start to do is just look at the cash on cash. What's the highest cash on cash? And then I'll just start looking at the assets. I see a 15% here. It's in Tennessee. I might start looking at it and start doing my due diligence. 14% here in Sumter, South. That looks pretty good. There's 21%. We'll see what it's all about. Wilson, North Carolina. And this 31, we can check that out. But then I'll just start highlighting them. I'm just like, okay, that's one of interest to me. I highlight them green for money. That's of interest to me. And maybe this 14 is of interest to me. And then maybe this 15 is of interest to me. And then I'll just start highlighting them. Then I'll highlight the ones that I'm really interested in, like those high ones. But then maybe I'll do a second color like purple or something for ones that'll be secondary. So this one's secondary. Hey, where's my purple? That's too dark of a purple. All right, we'll do a light blue. Light blue. but that one's pretty good, and we'll just do this one. Now I'm just picking things arbitrarily, but that's the way I will select them. So now I've narrowed down 110 assets to 5 that I'm actually interested in just based off of this. Now, are these the only ones that I'm going to look at? No, because once I start my due diligence and I look, I'm like, and then I'll just turn this back. It won't be, sometimes after I look at it, if it's a no real quick, I'll just turn it black so that I'm not looking at it. And then I'll go on to the next one. And then maybe I'll just come back and take a look at these. But either way, you want to make sure that you're just sorting it out to make it more manageable for you. And so that is pretty much how you scrub-a-dub your tape. Any questions? Did I go? I felt like I ran through that quickly.
It was pretty quick, and I might have some questions later, but
No
right
problem.
now,
No problem.
I got the gist of it.
Okay, perfect, perfect. But that's what
Tanya, I have a question.
oh, sure. Who's
Hey,
that?
this is Rhonda.
Hey, Rhonda.
So once you scrub the tape, the point you're at now, you've kind of narrowed it down to where you would be ready to make, I guess, that initial offer before you do your due diligence.
No, you want to do your initial due diligence first. So your initial due diligence, which we'll go over in future meetups, but your initial due diligence, you want to actually look at the area. You want to run your numbers in a budget sheet. You want to check the taxes online, at least check them online to make sure there are no back taxes, because that could kill your entire deal. And you want to also, you want to narrow down your comps. And you can do that all online, and that gives you enough information to put in a deal. And you can do that in like maybe 30 minutes. You can scrub this entire tape, look at a couple of assets, go online, and I just use Zillow or Realtor.com, solidify some comps, you don't even have to call the tax office. You can go online and check the taxes, because most of the taxes are online, see if there's any back taxes, and then say, okay, I have enough, run your numbers, say I have enough information here now that I can at least make an offer. And once you make that offer, then you continue into your second phase of due diligence. And so that would be actually making phone calls. We call realtors to solidify those numbers, make sure that the numbers you saw match and that they're okay. Or then we'll turn around and call the tax office, make sure that the numbers that we saw online are accurate numbers. So there's a whole process. There's 2 or 3 sections of due diligence that you want to do and that you want to take. But this will get you just to sorting to even select an asset.
Gotcha. Thank you for
Sure.
explaining that.
Who else has a question?
So getting the file comes after that, right?
Yeah, so you're talking about the collateral file.
Collaterals?
Correct, yeah. So after you make an offer, if your offer is accepted, then you will get a copy of the collateral file. And once you get a copy of that collateral file, just like we had that one, let me take the filters off, with the estate up here, you would be able to look in that file to see what is happening with that. You know, is it in probate, or is it that it's out of probate? Does it belong to somebody else? What's happening with it? You'll be able to look at it and see what's going on. And actually, if it's, well, I don't know, I'm thinking bankruptcy, sorry. But yes, then you'll get that file, and that file will tell you everything. And for those of you who don't know the collateral file, if you go onto our YouTube site, Leanne did an awesome job of going through a collateral file. And so go through that, and you can look at it. Let me put it up in the chat. But I want to go through, you know, little by little of how to, just scrubbing the tape is one thing, but then going through the due diligence is a whole other thing. Oh, let me stop sharing. I'll throw it in, but if you have an opportunity, go into our YouTube, is that Pure Harbor, and check that out. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
To get a tape like this, I know, you know, you go through a lot of different sources, you know, you have hedge funds and, you know, straight through the banks and all that. But to get the tapes with the best deals, I mean, where do you?
No such thing.
No such thing.
Doesn't exist. So tapes are tapes, and you can
Right.
get junk on some of them. Half of them
Mhm.
can be junk. The whole thing could be amazing,
Right.
or the whole thing could be trash. And so there isn't like one great place. Now there are a couple of people like you're like, I'm not doing business with you anymore because all you do is to give me trash. But that's just knowing that person and receiving a couple of things from them. And you're
Right.
just like, no, thank you. But there is no one place that is, oh, this is stellar stuff. Even the banks sell off some trash. And they're still shuffling papers. You're still seeing stuff come through from 2008 that they messed up, and people were just shoving files in folders, and stuff is all jacked up and messed up. So I
Right.
mean, there's still some things where I'm cleaning up title on a couple of things that should have been caught, 10 years ago. And I'm like, what is going on? But it's because you have people handling these documents. So I
Right.
mean, there is no stellar place, but once you have a relationship with one or two and they start sending you stuff that's trash over and over again, then you can cut them loose.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I didn't put that in the chat. Anybody else? There's our YouTube channel. This one will be up in the YouTube channel also. As we have them, I try to put them out there. And like Leanne said, that this would just be educational and to help people and try to, take people through so that they can get started on this journey of note investing and teach people what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed the meeting yesterday. I'm friends with Quan Sandler.
Oh,
And-
hey.
Yeah, and Renaud. I know Renaud.
Yes.
And I missed out yesterday. I wasn't well, not yesterday, Tuesday.
Mhm.
I wasn't aware of it. I didn't catch it until like the next day. Quan was telling me about it, and then I saw it on your LinkedIn page. I said, man, how did I miss that? But anyway,
No worries.
I'll
We
catch
got one
the
every
next
month.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll catch the next one for sure.
Awesome. We'll look for you.
All right. Great. I look forward to
And
being
thank you
there.
for joining today. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna miss this one.
Anybody have any other concerns, or y'all got this? Look at you. Y'all like, well, you got it. Yeah.
I know there's gonna be some questions from me down the line. I already know that for sure. I mean, I've gotten a lot of information from different sources and different people, but I have yet to, pull the trigger on anything.
Mhm.
But I'm getting closer. I've just
Okay.
been trying to get some finances in order and things like that before I start actually saying, send me some tapes,
Mhm.
because, but Quan says, make the connections first. And then when
Yeah.
you get yourself situated, then you're ready.
And that's true.
So,
That's
yeah.
true. Get
Yeah.
yourself together. Yep.
So I'm working on it.
All right. Take your time. I always say we're here. I'm here when you're ready to pull the trigger. I'm here. I'm ready to go with you.
Well, I'm very close. Very close.
Awesome. All righty. Well, I'm not going to hold you all. Feel free. I dropped my email in the chat. And so if you have any questions, or, you fall asleep and you're dreaming about tapes and you say, oh, I should have asked her, then just send me an email and I can answer your questions.
I have
That's funny you say that because I've done that.
I know, right?
Go ahead, Rhonda. I'm sorry.
Question. What seems a little bit intimidating is making an offer. And I think it's because maybe I just don't know what that process looks like. Are you able to just do a high level overview of like, what does that mean?
What is it? Making an offer?
Yeah.
Well, and let me tell you all, because Kaniti has already gotten her first note. And she did it as a partial. So she is now officially a note investor for several months now.
Great.
It's been working great. Thank you.
But the actual offer, what does it look like? There's no official paperwork or documents. It's not like you're buying a property, right? The official offer is literally just an email back to the seller. It's what is it that they want and how do they accept that offer? And some of them accept them differently, but ultimately it's just an email. So some of them want you to have an offer on the column, an offer column. They're like, oh, just add an offer column in the tape, and then you put your offer on whichever ones you want. That's called loan level bids. And it's when you're actually putting your bid in whichever one you want. If you want the whole tape, just offer on the whole tape, but you still have to put an offer on each and every one. And then others, it's just, you know, I want address 123 Main Street, and here's my offer, and put it in. So it's really simple. It's nothing, nothing fancy. There's no official documents, no notaries needed. It's just throwing in an email.
Cool. Okay.
And
Thank
when you say that, you're not bound by that initial offer. That's just to get the ball rolling until you get to perform your true due diligence, and then you go back.
Correct. So first it's an offer, right? And they could have multiple offers. So yours may not be the only offer on that asset. And it could be competing with some others. In some case, unless you have exclusive rights to it, you could be competing. Otherwise, yes, you put it in, you're not bound by it. But if they accept that offer, then you get that collateral file. They're expecting you to perform. But if you find something iffy in that title that you pulled, or you're looking at the collateral file and saying, this is some fishy stuff, or you lied and said that there were 20 years left and there's only 15 years left, that makes a big difference in your numbers. And if you find out those things, you can back out immediately. Otherwise, if everything pans out well, 9 times out of 10, they do expect you to perform. They expect you to move forward and do that deal and not back out. That's if everything's stellar and great. But if you can't justify why you don't want it, other than I don't have the money, or I just doesn't feel right, or I'm scared to pull the trigger, then you could be blacklisted a bit, and they're not going to want to do business with you. You know, but if you find something, then that's no problem backing out. Thank you. Any other questions? You all are awesome. So yes, hit
You
up.
too.
Thank you. Hit me up if you have any questions. Leanne has also dropped her information in the box. So if you have any questions for her, please reach out to her, reach out to me. We are here for you. Any questions, concerns, or just, you know, hey, I'm thinking about this. Just thought I'd send it your way. Send it our way. We'd be happy to help.
I appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All have a
Tanya.
great evening,
Thank
and
you,
I'll see you
Tanya.
next month.
Bye.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.